Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. For the most part, going back a season and looking at LSU's opponent hasn't really done you much good because LSU's had a massive amount of turnover in terms of coordinators since 2020. And you had a new head coach last year with all new coordinators and basically a revamped roster. So last year it was of essentially no use to do that. Well, we did it a little bit with LSU and Florida State, and we'll do it a little bit here today with LSU and Mississippi State. Specifically, when LSU has the football. Mike Denbrock is back as LSU's offensive coordinator. Mississippi State's defense is being run by the same brain trust. Yes, Zach Arnett is now the head coach. He's elevated as linebackers coach, but they are still running the same defense. Jaden Daniels is still the quarterback. Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Charles Turner, Josh Williams, Noah Kane, maybe even Armani Goodwin this weekend, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas. It's a lot of the same cast of characters there with LSU. And you look at State, Nathaniel Watson and Jet Johnson, who were among the top 5 in the SEC in tackles last year, are still back there in their front four. Nathan Pickering still playing at the nose guard spot. Deshaun Page is still their outside linebacker. DeCameron Richardson was their second leading tackler in the game against LSU last year out at cornerback. They lost an NFL corner. They're shuffling things a little bit in the secondary, but there's a significant amount of the same cast of characters that played inside Tiger Stadium last year. So I think it's relevant to kind of bring that back this year in terms of the discussion. If you'll remember the game last year, Mississippi State got up 13-0. It was with 2 minutes and 14 seconds to go in the first half. LSU to that point offensively had 5 punts and a fumble on its first 6 drives. That was the point in the season. It was very early, obviously. You had Florida State, where you didn't play very well on offense. You had Southern, which was a scrimmage. And then you had Mississippi State. And at that point, the offense looked putrid. The offensive line could not block. There was no stretching the field whatsoever. LSU was doing a very poor job of getting the ball to Kayshon Boutte and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. I didn't feel like the running back room was super talented. And you just looked up and you're like, this is not good. And I remember sitting in the press box, 13-0, 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go in the first half, saying this could be 1-7 in the league. Because at that point, I thought Mississippi State might be the worst team in the West. Turns out the wheels are going to come off at Auburn, and they certainly came off in College Station as well. But I thought there was a chance Mississippi State was the worst team in the West, and that LSU was looking at an awful 1-7 type year. It was an overreaction. Because at that point, Jaden Daniels took the football and went 75 yards on 7 plays. 48 of those 75 yards were Jaden Daniels' runs, whether scripted or not, and LSU got a touchdown before the half. All Mississippi State mustered the rest of the way on offense was a field goal. So when you look back at the game, LSU outscored Mississippi State 31-3 over the last 31 minutes of the game. In the fourth quarter, it was 21-0, and the game totally got away from Mississippi State. It did not look like that with 2 minutes to go in the first half. In that game, Jaden Daniels goes 22 of 37, 210 yards through the air and a touchdown, no picks. He carried the ball 16 times for 93 yards and a touchdown. You had Armani Goodwin, John Emery, Josh Williams. They carried the ball 21 times collectively for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. LSU did basically whatever it wanted the last 31 minutes of the game. They did very little the first 29 minutes of the game. They did basically whatever they wanted in the last 31 minutes of the game. I trust LSU's offense still, even though things weren't great in the Florida State second half. I think there are playmakers. I think the offensive line can get better. I think there are enough guys at running back to make it work, and I do trust Jaden Daniels at this point. The question is, how will they perform in this game? Because I think LSU is going to need them throughout this season. I think LSU is going to give up points, not just Saturday, moving forward. Will they be able to stay balanced? Brian Kelly was asked that question yesterday in his availability, and this is what he had to say.
They're a very difficult defense to go against because it's unconventional in a lot of the things that they do. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to stay balanced against them. If you're not balanced against them and you can't pick up their pressures, it's a long day. What we were able to do in the second half is pick up some of their pressures, get the ball out, make a couple of big plays. You know, the big one-on-one fade to Neighbors last year was big for us. We were able to hit a big run. You've got to be able to manage your offense, and we got to take care of the football. We make good decisions on offense, especially at the quarterback position. We should be able to have some success.
I agree. And he's talking about that fade to Neighbors. You've got to hit plays like that. Mississippi State had a first-round corner last year. They don't this year. They have issues in the back. We had Brian Haydad on yesterday. He said, yeah, I'm a little concerned what they have in the back end. Mississippi State's always pretty good up front, and their two linebackers are exceptionally productive players. I don't know if they're going to be first-round picks. They're not. But Jess Johnson and Nathaniel Watson are going to both have 125 tackles this year. Like, they're in position, and they make tackles. Their front's pretty good. The back end's where they're susceptible. LSU's got enough talent to make that hurt. They hit that fade to Neighbors last year, and they hit him and hit him and hit him, and then finally Armani Goodwin busts off a huge run that Mississippi State's just tired and not able to get to. LSU's got to be able to get the ball down the field where they have a sizable talent advantage. LSU did not have a sizable talent advantage really anywhere in the Florida State game, and I talked about that. I liked LSU's offensive line. I thought that Jared Verse and a veteran Florida State defensive front was really good. I liked that Florida State went and got Fentrell Cypress to be a corner who's going to be probably a top 3-round pick, and I thought that their secondary was up to the challenge, and most of the time it was. I thought Florida State's offensive line, that may have been the one thing that I thought LSU could tip the scales in, but I love Travis and those wide receivers. Obviously, I thought gave Florida State an advantage over Mississippi State. I don't see that tomorrow. I see LSU having a sizable advantage on the outside, and the question is, can LSU stretch the field? And Brian Kelly talked about that yesterday.
We've got good players. We can push the ball down the field. If you're going to run, double cloud and drop 8, it's a little bit harder to get the ball down the field. But, we'll manage what we see. And when we get the opportunity, if we get man coverage, we should win some matchups. Every college football team has to. So I guess my answer would be we feel very confident going into any game that our passing game can stretch the field and generate big plays down the field.
Now, I believe, as I said yesterday, that Zach Arnett and his staff are going to try to limit that. They understand that Malik Neighbors is a bit of a matchup problem for them. They understand LSU's athleticism on the outside is better than what theirs is on the outside. Well, what does that lead you to do? Not as play as much man, for one, puts you in zone, kind of casts a net, and LSU might have to do it death by 1,000 cuts early. But eventually, if you continue to have success doing that, and there's nothing that Jaden Daniels is better at than 5-yard passes and quarterback runs, and that's death by 1,000 cuts. And eventually, you get sick of that as a defense and as a staff. And if LSU will be patient early in the game and take that, not make any mistakes, no holding penalties, put you behind the sticks, no drops, just be methodical, State will come up, and when they do, you take advantage over the top, just like LSU did last year. And if you get them in those situations where you get them into one-on-one, State's going to have trouble winning those. And I don't think that LSU is. Now, when Daniel's got to make the throws. And if he does that, like he did last year, I think LSU should have success offensively. There's a blueprint from last week with Arizona where you look up and Jaden DeLaura is running all over the place in the second half and ended up having a very productive day. Now, he turned the ball over a ton. He had 4 picks. You can't do that. But he threw for 342 yards and ran for 44 more. He is diet light Jaden Daniels. I mean, like flat, been out in the sun for 4 hours, still the same thing, but not even close. If Jaden plays a solid game tomorrow, he's better than what Mississippi State can deal with. He needs help from the running game. He needs help from the receivers, winning matchups and going to get some 50-50 balls. But as I look at this LSU-Mississippi State matchup, when LSU's got the football, I see a lot of advantages. We'll see what LSU does on the right side of the offensive line. We'll see how the tight ends can going to acclimate themselves. You're going to see Mac Markway. You're going to see Kamorian Pimpton. You're going to see freshman tight ends out there. And it's not Mason Taylor for the very, very likely. So that's a little bit of a ding. But you've still got veterans all over the field, and you ought to be able to take advantage of Mississippi State, even in that environment, even with a good defensive coordinator, even with a senior-laden defense. LSU's just better than them. And that's not something I could tell you 2 weeks ago when LSU took the field in Orlando. So I feel pretty good about LSU on the offensive side of the ball for sure. Let's hope this is one of those games where everything kind of clicks like it did in the second half against these guys, like it did against Florida last year, like it did against Ole Miss last year. There's some explosiveness in this offense that needs to come out in Davis-Wade Stadium. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.